So Europe was very interesting this week. Probably one of the most dominating South American performances we've ever seen. Right. So we've just had another weekend of RLCS. What's this? 4 weekends now? Kind of 5 if you include the weekend where we just had qualifiers. And that means we have seen OCE, EU, Sub-Saharan Africa and South America complete their full cups. We don't have any qualifiers this week because the Invitational, the third regional, has no qualifier. It's based off of the points from the previous 2 regionals. So I think in the future it will be based off of all of the regionals so far. But for now, because it's only the full split, the full Invitational is decided by the top 16 teams from the full cup and full open. To start things off, we'll have a look at OCE. One thing that's to note, I don't know if any of you have been watching it, but we've got CJCJ now as one of the casters. And I think CJCJ, Jake, and Yummy Cheeseman, names you might be familiar with. I'm not so familiar with the rest of the guys. I mean, I think they've been doing OCE a while, but their casts are amazing if you want to tune in. I love the vibes over in OCE. But we do have Power coming out on top. We're expecting them to bounce back after losing pretty badly in the last event. Power being Amphis Torsos Fever. Adding Fever in place of Express, who used to be on the team, who retired. And then Pioneers coming second again, making a final, which is huge for them. You know, we know these guys from last season. Placeholders, Ground Zero doing a bit better this week. And this used to be Kaka's Minions, Placeholders, and Lake Show. These are all teams that are trying to break their way through. But as you see here, the Swiss, Power and Pioneer, the top 2 teams of OCE coming out on top there. No huge surprises here. And then if we scroll down to the top 8, Pioneers going through the top side, Power through the bottom side. That is going to be putting Power in a good position to try and make that top 2 position in the future. As you can see here, this is the standings right now. So Pioneers making both finals, winning the full open and coming second in the full cup, puts them in a pretty good spot to solidify. Obviously, they just need to get like a, I don't know, like probably a top 8. I don't know exact numbers, but they probably just need to get into the quarters of the full invitational, and that will probably secure them, clinch them in. For Power, they obviously need to continue making top 4s probably to clinch, maybe even the final, depending on if Ground Zero or Placeholders or the Lake Show make it. Obviously, these 3 teams here, all on 20 points. That 4 points is quite significant. Winning events gets you that extra 4 points over coming second. And that is quite a big difference because, as you can see, 9 and 6 is... So it's 9, 6, 12 for quarters, semis, and making the final. So getting an extra 4 points puts you another step above most of the teams. So in order to overtake Power, Ground Zero, Placeholders, or Lake Show will have to come 2 spots higher in the next tournament over Power, and we'll see this commonly throughout the regionals with the new point system, because it does make a massive difference if you win an event, which is why teams like Oxygen are in such a good spot over in Europe. In terms of over at the bottom, we're going to see a lot of tiebreakers to make the full invitational at this stage, because a lot of teams going to be on the same amount of points. You can see here 14, 15, 16, 17. That means there's 4 teams here on 14 points. I'm not quite sure if there's a way of doing a tiebreaker here, or if they'll just do a semis and final setup with these teams, but we'll see which of those makes it into the full invitational. Then when it comes to Sub-Saharan Africa, so last season, Sub-Saharan Africa had 2 big teams. It was Orlando Pirates XD and Bravado. Those 2 teams competed, and 6 of the regionals went to Orlando Pirates, where 3 went to Bravado. Especially towards the end, Bravado started to catch up a lot, and they won 2 out of the 3 in spring. Now, May Contain Nuts, for those of you who do not know, consists of 2 of Orlando Pirates in Snowy and Darth, and To Die For, who was the star player of Bravado. So they've combined to make this super team of Sub-Saharan Africa, and they continue to dominate, getting their 2nd win here. And you can see, if we scroll down, they made it without dropping too many, like this one here was almost a perfect sweep. They just lost that first game, and then they proceeded to a perfect sweep. A sweep here, and then against ATK in the final, did do pretty well here. And fair play to ATK, taking down Pirates XD. This is probably the series of the tournament here, because that's going to differentiate ATK and Pirates XD a little bit more. So last season it was a fight for first with Bravado and Orlando Pirates XD. And so far this season it looks like a fight for second between ATK and Pirates XD. So quick look at the standings. You can see here, win-win for May Contain Nuts, and then second, third. Oh, ATK actually came in the quarterfinals before. But yeah, you can see these 2 teams are the only teams to make a final so far. But yeah, Orlando Pirates just pinching it by getting a semi in the full cup. So we'll see how that pans out in the full invitational. Again, some... actually, this one, there's set 16 teams. So then we'll go on to Europe. So Europe was very interesting this week. So we'll go into a little bit more detail here. So Kcorp come out on top. So they made the finals of the previous event, Kcorp being Itachi, Vatira, and Exotic. And what I did just want to do, and I had a little scroll back through it. Do you remember when they got announced on Shift? There's a lot of people giving Vatira a lot of flack for moving from Joyo and Rise to Exotic and Itachi. I was personally quite a big believer in this just because I've always seen the joining an org that you care about vibe. Obviously being first hand with Kcorp when he joined Vitality, I saw how much of a boost for motivation and focus that can be to a team. And I felt that was going to be the case for Vatira. And I thought Exotic looked exceptional on Semper in the spring split last season. And you can see like this was what spurred on the rapid Vatira stuff. And so sorry for the bad language here in some of this bit here, but yeah, you can see Rapid was very vocal about it and people responding. And then there was a lot of mixed reviews. And even this one here, top 2 team in EU, RL polls, you can see there's quite a lot of believers, probably a lot of those being the Kcorp fan base. And then lots of people said no though. And then there was just so many responses. Don't see this roster as an upgrade, lots of stuff like this, loads of question marks. The downgrade is crazy. And then some people being like, congrats on KC winning. This person's probably a KC superfan. So you can see the KC superfans coming in, and then the non-KC fans saying downgrade and so on. So yeah, it was quite interesting how much this polarized the community. But KC looking like the strongest team potentially in the world right now, and very consistent with their game plan. But fair play to Quadrant. Kash coming in with the CJCJ show buff, which I was on as well. Go check that one out. Actually, I'll put a link in the description for you guys. So the CJCJ show I was on with Kash, CJCJ, Chrome, Jarzo, and we spoke a lot about our thoughts. And I predicted Kcorp would make the final, but I also predicted Oxygen wouldn't make top 8. And the reason being, I just feel like they had a pretty inconsistent game plan, and it's also very easy for teams to have that fallout when they do win a regional. To think that it's all good. And I think for the rest of these teams, they all stepped up, especially teams like Team Vitality, who didn't even make the last regional. They put a lot of work in to try and improve, whereas when you win, you have to wait for everyone else to improve to see where you need to get to. So I had a feeling Oxygen might not make it, and they narrowly missed out through the Swiss. So we have a look at the Swiss here. Quadrant BDS 3-0, and then Kcorp actually going all the way to game 5, which was a little bit sketchy. But then that's what ruined the quarterfinals, where we saw Kcorp against BDS in the first round. And, BDS don't look bad, but they don't look like the scary team that they used to be. So they've got a little bit of stepping up to do, but they have just had an unfortunate matchup of facing the 2 best teams in Europe at the moment in the quarterfinals in Quadrant and Kcorp. So we'll see how that changes, and maybe in the final regional, we'll see them step it up. But Vitality against Quadrant, this went to Game 7 overtime, was an unreal series. Definitely one we'll be analysing tomorrow. And then Moist still looking a little bit short in the region. Tundra, Algeria, Evil Geniuses definitely looked a level below the rest of this top 5 here. So I think right now I would say top 5 is definitely all these teams minus Vitality, Tundra, EG and Algeria. But Vitality could very well come in and cause an upset if they play the way they did this weekend. So very interesting right now in Europe. That 5th spot is going to be contested in the rankings. So you can see here Kcorp are confirmed now for the major. Quadrant basically confirmed. Oxygen basically confirmed. It's not definite. If they flop and come dead last, then obviously points are going to be a bit interesting. But I highly doubt many teams are going to overtake these guys. Similarly for Moist, I think they're far enough ahead with these 2 semi-finals. I think they're probably going to make a quarter-final, and if they do, they should be fine. It's really these next teams here, BDS, Tundra, Algeria, G1, Liquid, EG, Vitality. All of these teams, if they have a semi-final performance, then that could be enough to get the tiebreaker or even just ahead of any of the other teams to make that 5th spot that's highly contended for in the final regional. So a lot to look out for in Europe. And I also wanted to give a shout out to Kamato, the owner of Kcorp. Not that he needs a shout out, but the numbers that these guys get at Kcorp is massive for the Rocket League scene. People love checking out his stream. Very entertaining streamer as well. One to watch when their team is playing. More views than the main RLCS broadcast. So Kcorp definitely doing great things for Rocket League. Then we get on to South America. Now, South America has a top team currently in the club, so we can actually go and I'll just go straight over to the rankings. 2 regional wins has secured them the spot for the major. Then it's going to be on Team Secret and Endgame to try and get that next spot there, as you can see, both on the same amount of points. So that's going to be an interesting, maybe even like a semi-final match that could be really hype in the Fall Invitational. But if we watch the journey for the club, so this is probably one of the most dominating South American performances we've ever seen. You know, we've got 9-0 in games in the Swiss, and when we go down to the quarter semis final, 4-0 against True Neutral, 4-0 against Endgame, and almost a perfect sweep in the final versus Team Secret. So in South America, the club looking very, very good. I will be honest, I was quite critical of the club last week or 2 weeks ago when I analysed them in the final. There's a lot of flaws to their game plan, so I'll be interested to see whether they've worked on those. But good stuff by Team Secret. You know, Knight and KV1, two of the players to watch from last season, on the same team with Sad, who's one of the top KBM players in Rocket League. Them making the final makes a lot of sense. You know, Endgame making the final in the first one was a little bit of a surprise, but the fact they made the semi-finals again shows they are definitely a up-and-coming team in South America. Also, shout out to True Neutral. For those of you who don't know, Complexity, the South American team in North America, they moved over before last season, right? So almost over a year ago. Previously, they were True Neutral, and this is the first time, I believe, True Neutral have made a top 8 since they swapped to a new roster. So fair play to True Neutral for coming through, finding that new talent and developing them into a top 8 team. Yeah, there you go. That's South America. And then like I said, we've got club up here and the rest of the teams. Interesting to know that. One thing I didn't mention with Europe is we do have a tiebreaker situation in here. So between Heat, Team Go, and Williams Resolve. So check out that tiebreaker this week at some point. We'll see which of those teams makes the Fall Invitational. Unfortunately, Endpoint Guild and Turbo Clappers will not be in the Invitational. Then the last little bit to note is North America is going to be next weekend. We'll have a little look at the North American rankings. So we have, I believe, the tiebreaker resolved this last week. 26 Rising and Seoul got into that, and I believe Flashes of Brilliance just missed out in that tiebreaker. So we'll be seeing these two guys joining the rest of North America to see what they can do in the Fall Invitational. So yeah, that's pretty much everything this week. Let me know what your favourite storyline from this regional was. For me, the club going 21-0 in terms of games was pretty crazy. But also, I really love this quadrant storyline. You know, the team that's being underrated massively finally coming through. And when I analyse their gameplay later today and tomorrow, you guys will see how great they are and what they're doing super well. So leave a comment down below what your favourite storyline was, and I'll catch you in the analysis that will be coming out daily from now on.